You are accelerating up a hill. Your right foot is deep in the throttle, and then you hear it. A faint metallic rattling, like someone shaking a can of marbles under your hood. You tell yourself it is a loose heat shield. You turn up the radio, and in that moment, you just made a mechanical mistake that has already cost you a small piece of your engine. That sound has a name. Engineers call it detonation. Gearheads call it knock. Your owner's manual calls it spark knock or pinging. Whatever name you use, the physics underneath is the same, and it is not a loose bolt. It is your fuel literally exploding inside your cylinder instead of burning. By the time you hear the rattle, thousands of microscopic explosions have already occurred. The damage is not coming. It is already done. Normal combustion is a controlled burn. Your spark plug fires, a small flame kernel ignites near the tip of the plug. That flame expands outward in a smooth, spherical wave, pushing the piston down with steady, progressive force. It takes roughly 2 milliseconds for the flame front to travel from the spark plug to the farthest corner of the combustion chamber. 2 milliseconds of orderly, predictable pressure. Detonation is the opposite of that. Under the wrong conditions, too much heat, too much cylinder pressure, or fuel that cannot resist self-ignition, a pocket of unburned air and fuel at the far edge of the chamber reaches a critical temperature. It does not wait for the flame front to reach it. It lights itself, spontaneously, explosively. Now you have two flame fronts racing toward each other from opposite sides of the cylinder. When they collide, they do not merge. They slam together at supersonic speed, generating a pressure spike that can exceed 3 times the normal combustion pressure. That spike slams into the piston crown like a hammer blow. Then it bounces off the cylinder walls. Then it reflects back again. The sound you hear, that metallic ping, is the cylinder walls ringing like a bell. Your engine block is literally resonating from the impact. Here's the part that matters. That pressure spike occurs while the piston is still rising on the compression stroke. The piston is traveling upward. The explosion is pushing downward. They meet in the middle. The connecting rod compresses. The piston crown absorbs a shock load it was never designed to handle. If this happens once, you might get away with it. If it happens hundreds of times per drive cycle, which it does once detonation begins, the damage accumulates in ways that are invisible until they are catastrophic. Piston crowns erode. Tiny flecks of aluminum are blasted away from the surface, leaving microscopic craters that grow into pits. The piston ring lands. The thin aluminum bridges between the ring grooves crack. Once a ringland fractures, the ring loses its seal. Combustion gas blows past the piston into the crankcase. Oil blows past the rings into the combustion chamber. Your engine begins to consume its own oil. The catalytic converter clogs, the spark plugs foul, and the knock gets louder because oil in the combustion chamber lowers the fuel's effective octane rating even further. This is the spiral. Knock causes damage. Damage causes more knock. More knock causes catastrophic failure. For most of automotive history, there was no way to stop it. In 1921, a General Motors engineer named Thomas Midgley discovered that adding tetraethyl lead to gasoline raised its resistance to detonation dramatically. The lead molecule acted as a chemical buffer, interrupting the chain reactions that lead to spontaneous ignition. It worked so well that leaded fuel became standard worldwide for over 50 years. The cost, airborne lead poisoning on a planetary scale, was only understood decades later. Leaded fuel was banned from new cars in the United States in 1975. Midgley himself suffered lead poisoning during his research and spent months recovering. He went on to invent chlorofluorocarbons, making him the single human being who caused more environmental damage than any other. But his discovery of the octane scale, the measurement of a fuel's knock resistance, is still stamped on every gas pump you visit. The modern solution to knock is not chemical, it is electronic. In the late 1970s, Bosch developed the knock sensor, a piezoelectric microphone bolted directly to the engine block. It listens for the exact frequency that detonation produces. When it hears that frequency, it sends a signal to the ECU. The ECU retards the ignition timing by a few degrees. The spark fires later. The peak cylinder pressure drops. The knock stops, usually within 3 to 5 engine cycles. But here is the twist most drivers do not understand. The knock sensor does not prevent the first knock event. It only responds after knock has already occurred. Every time you hear that metallic rattle, even for half a second, Your engine has already detonated dozens of times. The sensor heard it before you did. The ECU retarded the timing, the knock stopped. But those first few detonations already happened. Multiply that by the thousands of mere silent knock events your ECU handles over the life of the engine. Events you never hear, never feel, never know about, and you begin to understand why engine longevity is a battle fought in milliseconds. So the next time you hear a faint metallic rattling under hard acceleration, do not turn up the radio. That sound is not a loose bolt. It is not a heat shield. It is your fuel detonating before the spark plug tells it to. It is a pressure spike hitting your piston crown like a hammer. It is the sound of your engine ringing like a bell. And every ring is a tiny piece of metal leaving the surface. By the time you hear it, the damage is already done. The only question left is how much more you are willing to let happen before you lift off the throttle.